Bomb, 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 Iran. Bomb, 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 Iran. Oh, bomb, Iran. In case you're wondering, that is the newest theme song for every neoconservative in America and around the world. Hi, how are you doing out there in internet land? My name is Brian Trippett. I am the Front Porch Conservative, and welcome to the Newsroom, this fun little thing that we occasionally do through the week, where we give our views on the news and we try to make sense out of this crazy thing that we call life. My name is Brian Trippett. I am known in social media as the Front Porch Conservative. Sometimes I am called the Cat in the Hat. Sometimes I'm called the Beau in the Chapeau. On occasion, I'm referred to as the common man with common sense. But in this moment, above all else, I am your host. We are on X. Catch that WWG1. I got it right this time. You're not getting that drink out of me yet. We are on X. We are on Rumble, and we are on that quaint little alternative social media platform known as YouTube. So if you would not mind, please do me some favors as always. If you are not subscribed to my channel, please subscribe to me on Rumble and on YouTube. And while you're at it, for tonight's live stream, find the thumbs up button, hit that thing, and then also leave a comment in chat, or not just in chat, but on the video, because it really does help with the algorithm. It pushes us out there. Folks get to see it a little bit more, and hopefully we get some new subscribers, new folks becoming members of Fedora Nation. And while you're at it, share the link with your friends, hit the bell for notifications, and there you go. All right. So good to have you cats here with us tonight. Thank you for stopping by this evening. We're glad to have you. It looks like we got a nice little crowd settling in. Got a good bunch of folks over there on X. We're glad to have you. And by the way, you folks on X, do not be afraid to say hello. If you've got the ability to chime in, please do it. Let us know who you are. We are a fairly friendly bunch around here, and we love it when you stop by, you folks out there on X. And let us know who you are. Say hello. If you have the ability to do it, we greatly appreciate it. So, yeah, let's say hello to some folks who are here this evening. And as always, he's making his presence known far and wide. The legendary WWG1. Good evening to you, sir. TBA is here, and you're working on some beer. I'm working on some. How many beers have you already worked on, sir? If you're gonna have spelling like that, I'm starting to wonder. Oh my goodness. Miss Pate. Hello, you good-looking thing. You glad to have you in the house tonight. Oh yeah, there's a good little crowd settling in. Glad to have all of you here. And like I say, for you folks over there on X, don't be shy. Tell us who you are. Drop a comment. It will show up on screen. We'll pop it up there. So absolutely. Now, wait a minute. We can't sit here and say that TBA's already drank 10 beers. That is unconfirmed. Wait a minute. Maybe they are going quick. Oh, wait a minute. Whoa, no. Wait a minute. Please tell me you're not drinking alone. That's all I ask. If you want to drink 10 beers, that's up to you. But just tell me you're not drinking alone. If you are, then I'd start getting worried about you. And anyway, yeah, for those of you who've never been here before, welcome into one of the most formally informal live streams you will ever come across. We have a good time here. We try to have fun in the midst of all this crazy that's going on in the world. And yeah, we're going to be talking about all kinds of stuff tonight. And so you're not drinking alone, but the cat's drinking with you. Well, All right, now that begs another question. How many beers has the cat had? I mean, look, we know that you're on your way to, getting seriously verschnickered, but what about the cat? Has the cat drank one beer? And are you pouring the beer into the bowl? That's the next question. I mean, how many bowls of beer has this cat had at this point? Uh, Okay, so you're saying one bowl of beer, okay, and catnip. Oh my god, I don't know, man. I don't know. Good grief, good grief. Anyway, glad to have you all here with us tonight. Like I say, we're trying to make sense out of this crazy thing that we call life, and as we do, we're trying to find a way to laugh through it all. So, and that's what we're going to do for a little bit before we get into the hard news, which we will. We've made our promise to you that we will always talk about the news. One of the things that we like to do here on this live stream is that we do the merry memes, those fun little things that give us a chuckle, make us think, or maybe even do both at the same time. So, with that in mind, like I said, hang on, folks. We're going to get to the hard news. But before we get into all that, let's do some memes. And I don't know quite how you describe this first one. I think this is more of a philosophical question, or maybe it's a question not necessarily philosophical, but a practical question in terms of culinary items. I mean, look, we're all trying to find different ways how to cook some of our favorite food so that it has a different flavor, a different taste, a different texture, a different appearance, that sort of thing. However, um, this one I'm starting to wonder if what really went on here. I mean, I'll show you what I'm talking about. Somebody recently cooked some steak, or no, cooked some pork. And he says, I cooked some pork roast for 8 hours. When I sliced it, I saw this weird, shiny green and rainbow reflection on the meat fibers. It looks like gasoline or water. Did the meat go bad? Well, the gentleman received an answer to his ex post with a very serious question. Did you cook it for 8 hours straight, or did you cook it for 8 hours gay? Now, look, I got friends of mine out there, and y'all know who you are. This is a serious question. I mean, when you're doing roast beef, do you cook it for several hours straight or several hours gay? Inquiring minds want to know. I mean, look what happened to this. I mean, this guy's got some kind of a rainbow thing going on inside of there. He's got, whatever. It's like, okay, did you cook it straight or did you cook it gay? I don't know. I don't know what you do with that one. So, yeah, very, very important question to have answered. So, for friends of mine out there who can answer this, please let us know. When preparing roast beef, do you cook it for X number of hours straight or X number of hours gay? Well, now, wait a minute. And that begs another question. How much flame did you put into it? We don't know. I mean, when you get this kind of a result, you got to ask these questions. Uh, okay, look. I'm not sure to take you. I'm not sure if I should take you seriously tonight or not. You're on your way to being seriously verschnickered. I don't know about you, man. I don't know about you, TVA. I think we're gonna start calling your nickname is gonna be Otis. Oh my goodness me. All right. All right. The secrets of film and television. We all have our favorite TV series or series of movies or what have you, and you always wonder what are the little secrets that go into making our favorite movies and shows as good as they are. Well, I recently discovered something about one of my favorite science fiction shows, Star Trek: The Next Generation. And I really didn't stop to think about this very much, but it does make a lot of sense when I learned this very important truth. And it's this. Did you know that in an effort to try to keep the production costs low, a lot of the scenes for Star Trek: The Next Generation were filmed here on Earth as opposed to being done in outer space? You know what? I kind of feel like a dummy for not realizing that. I always thought that they were traveling to these exotic planets out there in the Milky Way galaxy. And, you know, little did I realize, nope, nope. Everything they were filming was right here on terra firma. Hard to believe, but true. So, give the folks at Paramount Studios a lot of credit. They saved themselves a lot of money by filming Star Trek: The Next Generation down here on good old planet Earth. So there you go, folks. There you go. All right. What else do we have here? Ah, yes. You know, the older we get, the more that we realize that the things that we thought were fantasy, I don't know. I don't know. There's still a lot of fairy tales that we believe, but you know, when we talk about them as we get older, the language that we use tends to change. I mean, for example, when we were all kids, and our moms and dads told us a bedtime story, it started out with the words "Once upon a time." These days, when we hear about fairy tales, it starts with the words "according to experts." And you know what? We've been getting a lot of fairy tales like this lately. Let me tell you, a lot of fairy tales been starting with the words "according to experts," or the other famous phrase. The other famous phrase with a fairy tale: "Trust the science." Indeed, indeed. All right, what else have we got going on tonight? It's been now a couple or 3 weeks since the State of the Union address, and even though their television appearance during the State of the Union address was very brief, Representatives Rashid Tlaib of Michigan and Ilhan Omar of Minnesota have made quite an impact culturally. That image of them in the gallery, standing up to Donald Trump during with what he was saying during the speech, apparently it's made a lasting impression. I mean, we're finding pictures of the two of them drawn on the sides of buildings, um, all kinds of places. You wouldn't think it, but apparently those two must have made quite the impact. I mean, for example, this was recently found along the side of a building. I guess is in Rashid's hometown of Detroit. So yeah, Ilhan Omar, Rashid Tlaib, they made quite the difference. I tell you, quite the difference indeed. So to you ladies out there, you two congresswomen, I raise a glass in your direction. The hard work of our representatives is never done. Never done at all. All right. What else have we got going on tonight? What else do we have? A couple of three more of these, and we'll get down to serious business here. As you all know, Senate Majority Leader John Thune has now announced he's made it official, and he has teed up a vote on the Save America Act, the voter ID law that Trump is wanting to see passed. However, he is warning that there could be a consequence to that, and that is that if they pass a voter ID law, it could ruin their plans to hand over Congress to the Democrats in November. You know, he might be right. He just might be right. Indeed. Well, with everything that's going on in the Middle East, this has brought on a wave of patriotism here in America. And from places that you normally wouldn't expect. I tell you what, I got to give Gavin Newsom a whole lot of credit. In his own way, from out there on the West Coast, he is standing up to the regime in Tehran. I know this sounds shocking. Truly, it sounds shocking. But it really does start to explain some things. Matter of fact, the newly installed Ayatollah, the head of the Shiite religion in Iran, made a statement about our golden state out there on the West Coast. He said, "Iran is going to destroy California." Gavin Newsom responded, "Hey, that's my job." So, let's hear it for old Gavin standing up for the Golden State and for the good old US of A. Here's to you, Gavin. Thanks much. All right. A couple more and we'll get this thing kicked off in earnest. Oh, by the way, not everything you hear is bad news about the relationship between Iran and America. Believe it or not, even for all the bellicose bluster that you're seeing in the press and in the news, there are still diplomatic relations that are taking place between the Islamic Republic of Iran and the United States of America. As a matter of fact, through back channels, Iran reached out to us with a very important question that they want help with. I know this sounds shocking, but yeah, apparently through a diplomatic third party, the leaders of Iran reached out to us with a very important question. They wanted some ideas on how do you run a country with a dead leader. And given the current situation in Iran, I can kind of understand why they're asking this question. And given our most recent experiences, I can understand why we might have an answer for that one. So, we shall see how well this turns out going forward. All right, one last one. We're going to get out some serious news here, and I thank your indulgence for those of you out there on X, on Rumble, on YouTube, wherever you might be. One more meme, and we're going to get into some serious business. And I've always said some memes just sort of speak for themselves. And I came across one. You know what? I can't do anything but put this one up there. So, with that in mind, here you go. Doesn't that just really sort of speak for itself? Doesn't that really just sort of speak for itself? Wow. Anyway, all right. I want to thank WWG1. I want to thank TBA. I want to thank everybody who's been contributing memes, story ideas, everything y'all been doing. You guys are absolutely fantastic. And as always, please, if you have a meme or a story that you come across or something you think would be interesting for us to talk about, hey, see this right here? See that right there? That is where you can find me on X. Tag me on X or shoot me a DM. My DMs are open. And we'd love to have you. Oh my God. When did you stroll into the room? And by the way, Zippy, just to let you know, you are missing out on a golden opportunity. TBA is drinking a lot of beer tonight, and apparently he's sharing the beer with his cat. So I don't know if you can hot foot it over to his place or not, but if you can, apparently there's beer and catnip it's flowing like water over there. So Zippy, you and TBA kind of get together on this deal. And like I said, I don't know how fast it would take you to get to his place, but let me tell you, beer and catnip are flowing like water over there. It is crazy. So, if you're looking, I'm just saying, there you go. Anyway, getting back to my commercial. If you have a story idea or a article or a meme, hey, DMs are open on X, and you can also tag me on X. Now, as the host, I reserve the right to use or not use what you're giving me. But more often than not, if you provide something, it finds its way onto the screen. So, hey, take a chance. Go ahead and provide something, and we'd love to hear from you. And with that, we'll get into some news. And we're going to start, as we've been doing for the past few days, with the situation in Iran and turning a little more serious. I come tonight with some news, and I don't know quite how this one's going to turn out. And by that, I mean, I don't know if there are any U.S. service personnel involved in this piece of news that I'm going to give you, but CENTCOM is reporting the loss of a U.S. what's called KC-135 refueling aircraft. Now, CENTCOM is saying, and I'm going to read this from their post on X, the incident occurred in friendly airspace during Operation Epic Fury, and rescue efforts are ongoing. 2 aircraft were involved in the incident. One of the aircraft went down in western Iraq, and the second landed safely. This was not due to hostile fire or friendly fire. Okay. So, folks, when you're saying prayers tonight, among the other things that you're praying for, pray for our servicemen who are involved in this. As it stands right now, rescue efforts are ongoing, and let's pray that any service personnel aboard this KC-135 were able to make it safely to ground without injury or anything else happening to them. So that came across about, hang on here a minute, about a little less than 2 hours ago. So yeah, let's pray for our troops, especially in this situation. All right, getting into some harder news. Have you ever been in a situation where you and a friend or friends are caught doing something and you're trying to get your story straight, and no matter what you do, none of you, either the two of you or the multiple more of you, y'all cannot under any circumstances get your story straight? Well, that's kind of where we are between the US, Israel, and Iran. Now, let me back up and kind of give you some context for this. Just my personal observation that I'm about to make here. I think Donald Trump realizes, and again, y'all are at complete liberty to disagree with me on this, okay? I think Donald Trump realizes, oh boy, did I screw this one up. By this one, I mean the decision to start a military conflict with Iran, okay? I think he's quickly realizing I made a major league mistake, okay? Because his story is this thing's going to be over with in the very near future. I got a story here from CBS. Headline: Trump vows to end war soon as Iran hits ships, threatens banks, and toll on U.S. forces emerge. Article by Tucker Reels and Haley Ott. We have the following. Trump, has said again that the war will end, quote, soon, whenever he decides it should, as Iran says it's ready for a long-term war of attrition that will destroy the entire American economy. Now, this is what I mean by everybody can't get their story straight, okay? On the one hand, you got Donald Trump over here saying, well, we're going to end the war soon. Very soon. Going to end it, going to bring it to an end. I'll decide when I'm going to bring it down. And there you go. Then on the other hand, you've got Iran saying, oh, no, my friend. You walked into our house. We'll decide when you get to leave. And I want to comment on that here in just a second, but I want to get back to this article from CBS News. Drones hit the Dubai airport, wounding 4 people, government said, adding that a major aviation hub was still operating. So, yeah, you got the U.S. on one side of this thing saying, yep, we're going to get out of it soon. The Iranians, on the other hand, are sitting there going, oh, no. Here's a story from CNBC. This was about 5 days ago. Iran vows it won't surrender as war with U.S. and Israel enters second week. Okay, so now you've got the Iranians are like, nope, you ain't walking out of our house till we decide you get to walk out of our house. You walked in uninvited. We'll determine when you get to leave after we've inflicted some pain on you doing it. Then you've got the Israelis. The Israelis are out there saying, we're going to keep on going till we get it. Where was that article I found that earlier? Hang on just a second. One moment, please. Yeah, here it is. Here's that story I was looking for. This is from Reuters. War with Iran will end when Israel and U.S. decide, says Israeli foreign minister. Article by Alexander Cornwell. We have the following. Dateline Jerusalem. The war with Iran will continue until Israel and the U.S. determine the time is right to stop, said Israeli Foreign Minister Gideon Saer on Tuesday, declining to give a timeline for when the conflict could end. Turmoil has spread throughout the Middle East since the U.S. and Israel launched strikes on Iran 11 days ago, with Tehran carrying out attacks across the region in response. Fighting has expanded to Lebanon, where Israel is now battling Hezbollah. Saar said Israel has achieved major success in weakening Iran's nuclear and ballistic missile programs, and that when the time was right, Israel would consult with the U.S. on ending the war. We will continue until the minute that we and our partners think it is appropriate to stop, he told reporters, speaking alongside his German counterpart in Jerusalem. Israel says its goals is to destroy Iran's nuclear and ballistic missile programs and create conditions for Iranians to overthrow their clerical rulers. Again, you got three parties to this thing. You got us, the Israelis, and the Iranians, and nobody can get their story straight. Okay? Nobody. The U.S. says it's going to end soon. Israel says it'll end when we and the U.S. decide it ends, and the Iranians are like, oh, no, ain't nobody walking out of this party until we decide it's over. Which is it? Well, I'm going to give you my take on this. And, well, okay, well, we got a take out there in the audience. TBA says, I think this war will end by Easter taking bets now. Yeah, and here's an even better question. Which country is lying? Oh, God, that's a great question, brother. That's a great question. Yeah, but see, I'm not so sure. I'm not so sure if it's not the Iranians in the driver's seat. And I'll show you. Zippy, hold that thought. I'll show you what I'm going to get at here in a minute here. You know, I've been trying to figure, and I want to run something past you guys tonight and just get your take on it. I've been wondering what went into Trump's thinking as to why he pulled the trigger on this. And something hit me over the past couple of 3 days. And I'm not saying that it's the total one thing that made Trump do it, but I'm just wondering if his own past didn't make him decide to do this. Now, I'll tell you what I'm getting at here in a minute. I remember something that Alex Jones said about the time we were pulling off that military operation down in Venezuela. He said, I really hope that this does not embolden Trump to start trying this in other places. In other words, as opposed to a diplomatic solution, I can just use the military to achieve my objectives. Well, it turns out Alex Jones may have been right, but I think there's something else psychologically that goes along with this. And again, I'm not saying that this was the only factor. I'm just saying it was a contributing factor. Now, I want you to think back over the life of Donald Trump. And for the record, I am not sitting here claiming to be the greatest chronicler of his personal life or business career, but there is something important to remember about Trump. And you could make an argument that what I'm about to say is true of a lot of people, okay? There was a period in the late 1980s when Donald Trump could do no wrong. I mean, everything that man touched turned to gold and turned to money. I mean, he was buying up property in New York City. He's buying up the Trump Taj Mahal in Atlantic City. I mean, the guy's got a board game coming out, a book. You know, he's rich, he's famous, he's married. I mean, everything was going right for Donald Trump. Actually, I've been seeing some of his stuff and hearing. Tell you what, that's a good cat to follow. By the way, good cat to follow. Matter of fact, hang on a minute. Can I? Can I do this real fast? Because I want to pull up his X account. If I can find it. Does he? Doesn't necessarily have an X account, but man, this guy ought to definitely be listened to. Trying to find. Cannot tell you what. Go find this guy out on Twitter. He doesn't necessarily, I don't think, has a yeah. That one's for you, WWG1. He doesn't necessarily have an account on X, but yeah, if you can find where he's being interviewed, listen in. This guy's good. Anyway, getting back to what I was saying about Trump. There was a period in the late 1980s that man could do no wrong. And he kept buying property, and then all of a sudden he hit a downturn. And when it hit him hard. I mean, bad. And what people observed about Trump, the businessman, is he will get, like a lot of people, he'll get an eye full of something and he just can't stop. It's almost a compulsion. Now, you sit there and you say, well, what does that have to do with the modern day? That was the 80s. Yeah, but Trump carried that same tendency. And it can be true of all of us, by the way, where enough is never enough. Okay. And you start going to the well, you keep going to the well, and then you've heard the expression, you go to the well one too many times. That's Trump. Given Trump's personality, and then he saw the military success with our operation in Venezuela, and then he gets it whispered in his ear, hey, if we just launch some bombs, we can take down in 3 or 4 days of bombing, we can take down the Islamic Republic of Iran. The people will rise up, they'll overthrow the government, and we'll be fine. You take that, you take the military success of Venezuela, you take Trump's tendency to overdo things. And again, I'm not saying that my idea is necessarily the only thing that went into it, but you start understanding why it is he went ahead or pulled the trigger on launching strikes on Iran. Just my observation. I could be dead wrong about this. But when I think about Trump going back a long way, it starts explaining a lot. Okay? It really does. So now where are we? Well, the U.S. says they want to get out of it. The Israelis saying, well, no one's getting out of it until the U.S. and us decide to do it. And the Iranians are like, screw you both. You're not leaving until we say you're leaving. Well, not only have the Iranians said that, they've also said, we're closing the Straits of Hormuz. Headline from thehill.com. Iran's new leader issues first statement, says Strait of Hormuz must remain closed until war ends. Article by Ellen Mitchell. We have the following. Iran's new supreme leader, Mujtaba Khamenei, released his first statement on Thursday, asserting that the Straits of Hormuz will remain closed and Tehran will continue attacks on its Persian Gulf neighbors. In a message read on Iranian state television by a news anchor, Khamenei said, quote, the lever of blocking the Strait of Hormuz must definitely continue to be used, defying calls by the U.S. and global markets to reopen vital shipping lanes for oil trade. Khamenei also threatened that other fronts in the war in which the enemy has little experience would be opened if joint Israeli and U.S. strikes continue on the country, according to a quote from his message shared by the Islamic Republic of Iran Broadcasting. This is the first public message from Khamenei since he was named as Iran's highest leader on Sunday, replacing his father, Supreme Leader Ayatollah Ali Khamenei, who was killed in targeted U.S. Israeli strikes on his compound on February 28th. Okay, so they're going to shut down the Straits of Hormuz. Yeah, I've heard that rumor too. Now, I wanna play something for you guys, and I also do this with a grain of salt. Former House Speaker Newt Gingrich is a lot of things. He's definitely got some neoconservative tendencies, and he's got a lot of things I don't necessarily agree with him on. But there is one thing Gingrich is above all else. He is a fantastic historian. And he was on Larry Kudlow's show on Fox Business, and he gave some observations as it relates to our current situations in the Persian Gulf. With that in mind, former House Speaker Newt Gingrich.
Look, there are three huge challenges that this administration has tackled. The first is that, and they should have frankly moved on this on day one, they have to keep the Strait of Hormuz open.
Yes.
I don't care what it costs. If they can't keep it open, this war will in fact be an American defeat before very long, because the entire world, including the American people, will react to the price of oil if the strait stays closed very long. So I lived through this with Reagan, as you did, in the late 80s. Keeping the strait open is the number one job because it buys you time for the two other jobs. The second job is we're going to discover that the Revolutionary Guard is tougher than we thought it was, better connected, and have at least 200,000 people who are true believers, and they have no future. I mean,
right.
Trump can say unconditional surrender.
Right.
These folks know if they lose power, they have no future. And the third challenge is, how do you arouse and organize the street, the 85 million or so people in Iran who do not want the current regime, but they're unarmed, they're unorganized, and that has to be solved. These three problems are going to decide whether this was a stroke of genius or, frankly, a step into quicksand. And I think that the president has to focus very hard on solving these three issues.
Okay, let's stop and talk about this for a second. Because beyond the comments about the Straits of Hormuz, Gingrich does bring up a couple of points, and I don't think anybody, either the Israelis or the Americans, thought this through before they did what they did. Gingrich makes the observation, we're starting to figure out that the Iranian Republican Guard is a lot tougher than we thought. Really? You just now figuring this out? 200,000 plus man army at a minimum. And look, Iran has been at war going on 40 plus years in the Middle East. I mean, the Ayatollah no sooner comes to power in Iran in 79. In 1980, they've got a war going on with their neighbor, Iraq, which, by the way, we funded all the weaponry in Iraq for that war. And for 8 or 9 years, they went into a war of attrition. Iran has been fighting wars for years in one form or another. Did anybody, and after the 12-day war back in 2025, did anybody really think the Iranians were just going to sit around on their hands and not make preparations, that they couldn't see this coming? I mean, and Alex Jones was making this point today. You got a bunch of religious fanatics, not the whole nation, not the entire nation of Iran, but the controlling leadership. You got a bunch of religious fanatics who see martyrdom as a glorious thing know that they have an existential enemy in Israel who Israel can sit there and say, well, we want to take away their ballistic missile capability and we want to take away their ability to get a bomb. No, you want to destabilize Iran and take it down a few pegs to the point that they're no longer a threat to you. Okay. And again, as I've said ever since all this got started, I am in no way, shape, or form trying to be an apologist for Iran. I recognize it for what it is. It is a brutal dictatorial regime. It does not respect its citizens and is desperately trying to hang on to power. I get it. Okay. But yeah, these guys in Iran have been preparing for this for years. Do you not think that they know how to use the geography of that area to their advantage? Do you not think that they've studied that their perceived enemies very well? Seriously? We're just now figuring out these guys are tougher and better connected, as Gingrich puts it? Really? Now, the last point that he makes in that clip, don't get me wrong, I want to see the day come when the Iranian people are free and they can decide for themselves what kind of government that they want and how they want to live in freedom, however they want to define that for themselves, okay? But I don't think, even if we carpet bombed Iran into the Stone Age, that it would be enough for the majority of the citizens of Iran to rise up against their government. Not because they don't want to. I just think the government of Iran is better prepared than we realize to fight off that kind of a contingency, to hang on to power. Again, I could be wrong about that, but if after all this bombing, the people of Iran still haven't risen up, well, I don't know they're going to do it anytime soon. No, yeah, true. Very true. Very true indeed. Patty says, it's true about Trump, but with the ups and downs of the chances he takes, he still ends up a billionaire. But war is a different story. My World War II survivor dad always said, war is hell. Oh, that is so true. General Sherman's statement rings true even unto this day. TBA says, I'll bet Iran was one of the hubs for illicit trafficking, oil, drugs, humans, etc. And that's why Trump is bombing them back in the 7th century. Well, oil and drugs, yeah, I could see that. Human trafficking, I don't know. Maybe. We'll see. Our advanced weaponry could take anyone out anytime. Okay, I grant you that. I will grant you. We got all kinds of weapons. I don't dispute that at all. And have we shown all of our cards yet? More than likely not. There's probably a bunch of stuff we're holding in reserve that we probably haven't even used yet. But I just don't know, even if we pulled out all the fancy, if we brought out the best china, the fancy silverware, if we're going to get these people to sit down to the table. You know what I'm saying? I just don't know. Anyway, found a couple of clips tonight from a professor of international studies. His name is Vali Nassar. He's at Johns Hopkins in Washington, D.C. I came across these and I want to share them with you, and I thought you might find these interesting. Going back to the recently assassinated Ali Khamenei, Professor Vassar says the following. I thought you guys might want to hear this.
Their nuclear program. And also, Khamenei, we know what is the restraint, for instance, on the range of Iranian missiles. I mean, it's very clear that he prevented IRGC to build missiles that could be up to 5,000 kilometers range. And in fact, in one public speech, he said that the IRGC are unhappy with me for restraining them on this. And the commanders he chose, which Israel continuously eliminated, many of them were the less hardline commanders that might have been much more risk-taking in terms of offense. But I think after the end of the 12-day war, I think he also became determined that the primary task was preparing for the next war. And whatever Iran needed to do to be prepared, it should do. So it wasn't restraining IRGC's ability or desire to build many more drones and missiles, or to divest authority from himself across the Iranian state in a way that it would be managed. It was Khamenei that elevated Ali Larijani to be sort of the uber bureaucrat to manage the system, even in his absence, or to create multiple redundant decision-making bodies so that if one is eliminated, another one is there. And
okay, a couple of points. And some of this we've talked about, some of this you've already heard about. Ayatollah Ali Khamenei, by account of a lot of people who sort of study the inner workings of Iran, may have been the one restraint on the Iranian Republican Guard's desire to go to a nuclear program, to be able to make a nuclear missile. And that's not just my observation, that's the observation of a lot of different people. If that's the case, then we took out one of the few remaining restraints against the hardliners' desire to go full nuclear. I don't know. I remember TBA was asking me, I think one of the last times we gathered together, is it that I object to the ends of the war or the means by which we're achieving them? Well, it sort of depends. What are the ends? What are we trying to accomplish here? Is it regime change? Is it we're trying to stop their ballistic missile program? Is it we're trying to stop them from getting a nuke? I don't know anymore. Are we trying to defend, the price of oil? Are we trying to save our own economy? I don't know. What are the objectives? Now, depending on what those objectives are, I don't necessarily disagree with the ends, but I got a problem with the means. We're basically fighting an undeclared war. Would the Iranians go nuclear? In other words, if the recently assassinated Ali Khamenei was the last restraint on the Republican Guard in Iran, what's stopping them now from saying, yep, we're going full force, we're going to create a nuclear weapon, and we're going to attach it to a missile? One other clip from Professor Nasir, and I thought this one was pretty good. I want you guys to hear this one as well.
In a way, I'm not surprised, because they are still, fighting the battle of resistance, if you would. But what surprised me is the determination in Iran that this will be the last war they're going to fight with the United States.
Now, before anybody starts thinking that he's getting awfully apocalyptic here, there is something to consider. And it goes like this. If you're Iran, okay, think about it from this perspective. How many more times do you want to keep doing this? We fight a conflict with Israel, or we fight a conflict with Israel and America, or we have bombs dropped on our country. And then in 6 to 8 months or a year, they're going to do it again and again. And again, how long do you want to keep putting up with this? Professor Nasir brings up a valid point. What if the Iranians are looking at this like, look, if we're going to have to do this thing with the Americans, then let's do this once and for all and get them out of our hair indefinitely. That's a fair consideration. Maybe that starts explaining why the Iranians are saying, no, 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 no. This thing's not over until we say it's over. And frankly, America can sit there and say it's going to end soon until the other side in the fight says, yeah, we're ready to end it. We might quit fighting, but they're not. Anyway, back to the clip.
That either they would go down or they would absorb whatever the US and Israel can throw at them, but then they would essentially force a recalculation on the United States such that when this war ends, it would not be a return to the status quo. That's not where they want to go back. And I think the audacity and the determination they've shown to pursue this strategy has been somewhat surprising to me, even though everything about it is very much in the DNA of the Islamic Republic.
And what's
okay? Anyway, just some food for thought. Just from some food for thought. I have heard the same thing. I've heard they've got the uranium enriched enough to make a bomb. The only thing they don't have is the ability to connect it or miniaturize it in such a way that you can put it on a ballistic missile. That's the only problem. Hold that thought, WWG1, because I got a clip coming up here in just a second. And you know what? I'm just going to go ahead and play it right now. John Mearsheimer. John Mearsheimer, probably one of the smartest realists out there in the area of foreign policy. And if you don't listen to what Mearsheimer is saying, regardless of whether it's Ukraine, Russia, the Middle East, etc., I really, really recommend you start paying attention to Mearsheimer. I honestly, if Donald Trump was going to give anybody the job of Secretary of State, I wish he would have given it to John Mearsheimer. If I'd have found out John Mearsheimer was going to become Secretary of State, I'd have jumped for joy. But alas, I don't necessarily get everything I want. Before I play that clip, Zippy says, Iran just needs to do what Saudi does, do a better job at funding terrorism. Thank you, Zippy. Anyway, going back to WWG1's comment, if anyone used nuclear, that would be a breakdown in the doctrine of mutually assured destruction. Oh man, hold that thought. I got something for that. But anyway, John Mearsheimer was being interviewed recently, and they got into the discussion of the Iran-American conflict and what the end game might look like. And Mearsheimer said something that, man, I hope he's wrong, but I want you guys to hear this. And again, I'm not trying to scare anybody. I'm just putting out some food for thought. Anyway, with that, the incomparable John Mearsheimer.
I think this is a remarkably dangerous situation. If the Israelis lose in Iran, they will be fully aware that they lost. They will be fully aware that they will have enraged the Iranian body populace, right? They will be fully aware that an Iran with nuclear weapons will be very, very dangerous from Israel's perspective, and they will go to great lengths to prevent that. And if they can't prevent it through conventional means, then we get to a scenario where they think about using nuclear weapons. And as we know, there's no state on the planet that is more ruthless, more murderous than the Israelis. So the idea that they would use nuclear weapons is certainly plausible. And I really worry about this scenario.
Now, Mearsheimer could be dead wrong, and personally, I hope he is. I really do. But he does bring up a valid consideration. If Israel loses this thing against Iran, okay, they are basically laid bare before the entire Middle East. Forget just Iran. Everybody in the Middle East is going to be PO'd with them. The Syrians, the Lebanese, the Jordanians, everybody. Okay. And you're going to have an Iranian nation run by hardliners who are probably going to be hell-bent for leather to get their hands on a functioning nuclear weapon that they could put onto a ballistic missile. If you're the Israelis and you can't beat them conventionally, do you... I mean, yeah, would it violate the doctrine of mutually assured destruction? Yeah, WWG1, I believe it would. Could the Israelis be in a situation where they might actually consider it? Yeah. And again, I'm not trying to scare anybody. I'm just, it's food for thought. It really is. Gypsy asked a question a second ago. Why in God's name do we send two real estate people over to the Middle East to negotiate something with the Iranians about a nuclear weapon? I've got a post on X written by a gentleman named David Albright. He's the president and founder for the Institute for Science and International Security. By his own claim, he has spent a lifetime studying nuclear weaponry. Okay. And I'm going to go ahead and put the link to this X post on Rumble and on YouTube. And that way, if you guys want to read this or chew on it at your leisure, you can do it. But I want to read you some parts of this because I'd like to try and answer Gypsy's question. Interesting interview between Witkoff. I finally listened to Steve Witkoff's interview on March the 4th on the Mark Levin show. As a technical nuclear expert, I must say it was painful listening to Steve's mangling of several nuclear facts. He really needs to attend our introductory course on the technical basis of nuclear nonproliferation. That being said, he revealed some interesting information and insights about the Iranian negotiating positions and Iran's total stockpile of 20% of enriched uranium, not just the amount publicly released to the International Atomic Energy Agency under JSOP rules. Witkoff made it clear to the Iranians that Iran's entire stock of enriched uranium, including all of the HEU, would need to leave Iran for a deal to be done. The Iranian reaction startled him and left him more suspicious about Iran's sincerity to negotiate. Witkoff said that the Iranians stated at their first meeting, paraphrasing, "We will not give you at the negotiating table that which you could not win militarily." At a later session, the Iranians provide a 7-page document about their nuclear plans and proposals, which Witkoff could read but not take back for analysis by U.S. technical experts, as Witkoff requested. In that document, it was clear to him that Iran wanted to fuel the Tehran research reactor and additional research reactors with 20% fuel. Witkoff was convinced that the Iranians wanted to make sure they could enrich to the level for both the Tehran reactor and these additional research reactors, but he concluded that this meant that the Iranians would not even be able to accept the limit on enrichment, and this gets a little bit technical. Given his suspicion of the Iranians, he saw the offer as a cover to maintain nuclear weapons capability or worse. With a clearly articulated administration goal of zero enrichment, that was a non-starter. Going a little further into the post, listening to the interview and the contradictory statements by the Iranians after the negotiations ended, the Iranians misplayed their hand with two U.S. negotiators who were highly suspicious of their intentions and their motives, with the result that the negotiations were doomed to fail. But the blame rests on Iran, given they did not even have the sense to allow the non-technical Witkoff to take the 7-page document back to D.C. for study, and that Iran insisted on positions that it knew were non-starters to the Trump administration. Those same positions would have been non-starters to Obama's administration as well. There is other interesting information about the negotiations in the interview, and I would encourage a listen, remembering that there are technical mistakes. One of the most quoted ones is that Tehran's research enriches uranium. It cannot do that. It uses 20% enriched uranium as a fuel. No one who has studied our course would make such a mistake. Now, again, take it for what it's worth. This is just one man's opinion. To the question of why did Trump send Witkoff and Kushner, Gypsy, I think it gets down to this. I don't think Trump trusts his own State Department. I don't think he trusts some people inside the government. And frankly, I can't blame him. I really can't. I think he trusts Witkoff because he and Witkoff are old friends. I think he trusts Kushner because, number one, he's his son-in-law. Number two, he's Jewish, which you could have picked some better representatives. I mean, if you didn't trust the State Department, send somebody from the Department of Energy who at least understood the technical aspects of what was going on. So I don't know. Now, the Straits of Hormuz are closed. What does that mean for us here in America? Well, rising gas prices, but another thing that people hadn't thought about much. Check this out.
There's been some predictions that fertilizer will go up another $100 a ton on top of losing money as it is. So it's really sad that the farming has got to the point where we're losing money to even be doing it. And then with things going on like it is, there's so much uncertainty.
We're used to dealing with markets going up and down, but when we see such a large increase in such a short span of time is what really makes it harder to deal with.
We have a lot online from day to day, and at nighttime, sometimes it can be hard to sleep.
A lot of guys have just said, I'm done. We're going to quit. They're hanging it up. There's sales everywhere. Lots and lots of farm sales. Financially, it's causing a lot of mental health problems as well.
This topic I got to dig into a little bit more, but apparently it's not just the oil. There are other things that could come through the Straits of Hormuz, fertilizer being one of them. So just some food for thought. Now, listen, I'm not saying I necessarily trust them, but, and again, something I got to look into a little bit further is this story related not just to oil, but other goods and services that are coming through the Straits of Hormuz and or the Persian Gulf. Just putting it out there for public consumption. One last thing, and we'll end it on this. Can you blame the Iranians for being suspicious when the following could be a representative of the United States? Speaking at the Republican Jewish Coalition, U.S. Senator Lindsey Graham had the following thoughts.
So I just want to say I feel good about the Republican Party. I feel good about where we're going as a nation. We're killing all the right people and we're cutting your taxes. Trump is my favorite president. We've run out of bombs. We didn't run out of bombs in World War II.
God. People of South Carolina, if you are watching this live stream, and I really hope you are, or I hope that you do, would you please do the United States of America and the world an enormous favor And when your primary comes up in June, would you please take this piece of trash out to the garbage can? Please. This guy needs to go. Absolutely needs to go. Fuels, gasoline, 45% of refined products, diesel, jet fuel, heating oil, liquefied lubricants, motor oil, bearing grease, machine oils used in various machines. Clothing, nylon, polyester, electronics, personal care, furniture. Yeah, all these things come from oil. Well, hello, Audrey. Glad to have you here with us tonight. We've had a Republican president and a Republican majority in every branch of government for over a year. This is as good as things will ever get for conservatives. Dems are 85% favorites to win the House. I stand by my prediction, Audrey. I don't think that's just going to stop with the House. I think they're going to take the Senate. And one more from ammonium synthesis natural gas is the primary feedback for ammonium production via process combining atmospheric nitrogen with hydrogen from methane. Ammonia is okay. Yeah, a lot of stuff comes from oil. A lot of stuff. Gypsy says, listen, if I were an Iranian official, I would not trust two Jewish real estate brokers either. That was dumb. I heard Ron Paul would have been a great person to send, but we didn't want to negotiate. I've heard the same thing, dear. I've heard the very same thing. Zippy says, how would you trust any Iranian official? They stop warring with the world and enslave their people. Israel is at least stable. Oh yeah, Israel's very stable. Just ask the Palestinians in Gaza about that. Yeah, ask the people of Gaza about Israeli stability. How's that working out for them? And Zippy, we can agree to disagree on this. That's perfectly fine. But I'm not so sure I can figure out who the good guys and the bad guys are in this one. I'm really not. I don't know. I don't know anymore. I don't. Which is all the more reason we shouldn't even be over there in the first place. I will say this. If one of the results of this conflict is that we pull our bases out of the Middle East and bring our troops home, I hope that we're able to do it without some kind of military defeat. But I'll tell you what, wouldn't hurt my feelings at all. We've got upwards of about, I think that we estimated at one time on the live stream, we've got about 50,000 men based in the Middle East, in and around the Arabian Peninsula. We need to bring those guys home. I know. There's stuff they need to do. There's surveillance work. There's military intelligence. I get it. But my God, we're sitting ducks over there. Just sitting ducks. I just don't like where this is going. I really don't. Anyway. All right. It is 10 minutes after 8. Let me do a real quick commercial, and we'll move on to some other topics. By the way, I want to thank everybody for being here tonight. And yes, you know what? Do not worry about being late, Lana. We just glad you're here, baby. Love you, darling. Want to thank the folks over there on X. Quite a few of you over there hanging out with us tonight. Quite a few folks on YouTube. Quite a few folks on Rumble. And if you're happening on this live stream and you're sitting here looking at this guy going, hey, who's this cat in the hat? What's he talking about? Well, let me introduce myself to you. My name is Brian Trippett, and I am known in social media as the Front Porch Conservative. This live stream is what we call the Newsroom. We get together on occasion through the week, talk about what's going on in the news. We also get together on the weekends on Saturday mornings at 10:30 for Front Porch Brunch. And like I said, this live stream is to give you guys a chance to just kind of give your views about what's going on out there. Well, yeah, may as well go ahead and get into this. I will be traveling this weekend, so no live stream. That is in part why we're doing live stream tonight. I want to get one in before the weekend, and because there's just too much going on in the world right now. There really is. Oh, well, thank you very much, sir. Thank you very much. And by the way, if you're not following this young man on social media, be it on X or be it on YouTube or anywhere else, you need to check this cat out. Christian Watson is probably one of the smartest commentators out there, and always good to have him on the live stream tonight. Glad to see you out there, Christian, and a glass in your general direction. Anyway. All right. So yeah, find me on X, find me on Rumble, find me on YouTube, subscribe to my channel, do all those cool things. Would love to hear from you. Love to have you as part of Fedora Nation. All right. Couple of real quick things. So Trump took a run into Kentucky the other day. And talk about not knowing who your friends and your enemies are. That's Trump right now. Absolutely just, he's got a Jones right now to take out Thomas Massie. And I mean, I get the why. He's PO'd at Thomas Massie over the Epstein files and various other slights, real or imagined, that Massie has done to Donald Trump over the years. But Trump goes into Hebron, Kentucky the other day for a rally, which he hasn't done in a while. And I don't think it quite worked out the way that Trump was intending. I got a headline here from the UK Daily Mail. Trump flies to Kentucky to back candidate who, quote, fled the GOP in disgust days after the 2016 win. Uh-oh, what is this? Article by Victoria Churchill, U.S. political reporter. Thomas Massie is the Republican Donald Trump wants gone more than almost any other, and now the president is on his way to Kentucky to prove it. Trump will give remarks at Verst Logistics in Hebron, Kentucky, where he is expected to rail against Massie, boost his hand-picked successor, Ed Gallrain, a retired Navy SEAL, although the formal guidance for the event describes the speech as remarks on the economy. Quote, the president will be in Kentucky to breathe life into my opponent's Biden-like basement campaign, Massie noted in a Tuesday night post on X. Massie is accused his Republican primary opponent of abandoning the party in the wake of Trump's 2016 election win, brandishing voter registration cards he claims show the challenger quit the GOP and didn't even register until 2021. I call them voter transition cards. He transitioned out of the party and stayed out for 5 years, Massie said at a GOP event last weekend, according to the Cincinnati Enquirer. The cards, posted on Massie's X account and front and center in a new campaign ad, are central to his case against Gallrain, whom Massie is portraying as a fair-weather Republican whose party loyalty only returned when Trump was out of power. In the ad, Massie's campaign claims that woke Eddie left the Republican Party right after President Trump won the Republican nomination in May of 2016. The ad also notes that as the MAGA movement is taking off, disgusted by what he sees, woke Ed Gallrain turns his back on Trump and walks away. So Trump went down to Kentucky, for what that was worth. And so Trump gets through giving his speech. And, well, I don't think it had the intended effect. This is Kalshi, one of the betting sites, talking about the May primary, who's going to win. Prior to Trump giving the speech, Massie was at 52%. After the speech, Thomas Massie is now at 67%. Basically, in simple language, ladies and gentlemen, Trump's speech helped out Massie more than it may have helped Gallrain. Yeah. And the part that gets me, Trump, Thomas Massie is the one Republican Trump wants to get rid of. Hey, Trump, How about that snake in the grass, Lindsey Graham? Wouldn't it be good if you got rid of him? Or how about John Cornyn of Texas? Or how about John Thune, who you helped elevate to Senate Majority Leader, who's not doing a daggone thing to help your agenda? Wouldn't it be nice if you actually aimed your ire at the very people who are screwing you over, as opposed to people like Thomas Massey, who vote with you most of the time, but just happen to disagree with you on certain issues? Unbelievable. Just the political stupidity that is Donald Trump. Oh boy. Unbelievable. Yeah. Yeah. Anyway, so there have been some things that have been done in recent days to try and help with gas prices here at home. Got a headline here from Fox News. Unprecedented agreement releases emergency oil reserves as gas prices spark concern. Trump said the move will substantially reduce oil prices. Article by Alec Schimmel, I should say, at Fox News. We have the following. After deliberating and assessing the global oil market situation in the face of the Middle East conflict stemming from the United States attack on Iran, 32 different developed nations agreed to make a, quote, unprecedented move to help address oil challenges. The IEA, the International Energy Agency, held an emergency meeting at its Paris headquarters Tuesday with energy representatives from the cohort of G7 countries to assess market conditions, which IEA Executive Director Fatih Birol says, quote, have been significantly affected by the conflict in the Middle East. At that meeting, the 32 member countries unanimously agreed to collectively release the largest quantity of emergency oil reserves they've ever had as a coalition, amounting to 400 million barrels. The oil market challenges we are facing are unprecedented in scale. Therefore, I am glad that the IEA member countries have responded with an emergency collective action of unprecedented size, Birol said after the announcement about the release of the emergency oil reserves. Oil markets are global, so the response to major disruptions needs to be global too. Donald Trump touted the IEA agreement before remarks in Kentucky on Wednesday, saying the move will substantially reduce oil prices. Before the outbreak of the war, oil was trading in the range of $60 to $70. The prices soared as the conflict began, with crude oil futures reaching upward of $115 a barrel on Monday, the highest level since 2022. So that's what they've done. We shall see. Now, there's one other thing that's been kicked around, and that is a temporary suspension of what you call the Jones Act. Well, that sort of begs the question. What is the Jones Act, and how does it help me with lower gas prices? Well, here you go. From Newsweek magazine, article by Andrew Stanton, and he answers that very question. What is the Jones Act? President Trump is considering issuing waivers of the Jones Act in its latest effort to curb rising gas prices amid the ongoing conflict with Iran in the Middle East. Quote, in the interest of national defense, the White House is considering waiving the Jones Act for a limited period of time to ensure vital energy products and agricultural necessities are flowing freely to U.S. ports. The action has not been finalized, Press Secretary Caroline Leavitt told Newsweek in a statement. So, what is the Jones Act, you might ask? The Trump administration is planning to issue a 30-day waiver for the Jones Act, and it would allow foreign oil tankers to supply refineries on the East Coast with fuel from the Gulf Coast and elsewhere, Bloomberg reported. The Jones Act is a century-old law requiring goods shipped between American ports to be on ships owned and operated in the United States. It is formally known as Section 27 of the Merchant Marine Act of 1920. It was designed to ensure the United States maintained a strong merchant marine fleet capable of serving as a naval auxiliary in times of war or national emergency. So it requires goods shipped between American ports to be on ships built, owned, and operated in the United States. Okay. All right. Going a little further into the article. Jones Act was established following World War I. Wilson signed it into law on June 5th, 1920. Marine labor groups opposed the Jones Act waiver. A coalition of maritime labor organizations sent a letter to the White House raising concerns about the potential for a Jones Act waiver. The waiver would create opportunities for foreign flag operators to avoid paying U.S. taxes, rely heavily on low-wage labor, and operate under regulatory regimes that circumvent international labor and safety standards in direct conflict of the American national security and economic interests. Okay. When could gas prices go back down? Oil prices surged to more than $100 a barrel on Monday and have since fallen. Oil costs were about $91 per barrel on Thursday, according to crude oil futures. The administration has also announced it would release 172 million barrels from the Strategic Petroleum Reserve to combat gas prices. So there you go. That's where we be, folks. Bad part about it, and I wish I had the article pulled up, a lot of experts are claiming that gas prices aren't going to go back down anytime soon until possibly mid-2027. Yike. Oh, boy. Oh, boy, indeed. All right. Getting ready to bring the train into the station, but before we do, we're going to play a couple of things just purely for fun. Okay. And again, to all you good folks hanging out there on X, hanging out on YouTube, hanging out on Rumble, we got to end this live stream with some fun. And with that in mind, I want to thank WWG1 for these next two that are coming up. And like I said, we're going to end this with some fun. YouTube's probably going to pop me for these, so I know that going in. It was just part of the reason why I saved them toward the end of the live stream, because there's going to be some music involved, and yes, it will be well, before I do, hang on a minute. I got a question out here from the professor. Was there this level of anxiety during the Reagan era? I imagine the Cold War, there was some, but there was more unification. Let me see if I can address that or try to. There was anxiety, but for different reasons. A lot of people, when Reagan came to the presidency between 81 and 89, there were people claiming that Reagan was going to get us into a nuclear war with the Russians. Keep in mind, we still had a very severe Cold War going on between us and the Soviets. Reagan, in his time in office, dealt with 4 different Soviet premiers: Brezhnev, Chernenko, Andropov, and then finally Gorbachev. The anxiety had more to do with us dealing with the Russians. When Reagan walked out of Reykjavik, everybody in the intelligence was like, oh no, we're never going to get a deal done with the Russians, and oh my God. Yes, there were tensions in the Middle East, and yes, we had conflicts in the late 80s in the Persian Gulf, similar to what we have now, but different. The Straits of Hormuz were a major hotspot. But the anxiety didn't have to do so much with the Middle East as it had to do with our relationship with the Soviets and whether we could control this cowboy Reagan and keep him from getting us all blown up. Also, it was a different America at that time. Keep in mind, too, for Reagan's reputation for, being a cowboy and everything else, Reagan was remarkably restrained in terms of the use of the United States military. Yes, we invaded Grenada. Okay. I don't dispute that at all. That was like 1982. Yes, we dropped a couple of bombs down Gaddafi's chimney after the bombing of Pan Am 186. Okay. But Reagan, George Shultz, his Secretary of State, Caspar Weinberger, the Secretary of Defense, these guys operate under a very old doctrine, and that was we don't use the might of the United States military unless we've got no choice and it is in our vital national security interest to do it. Plus, I would argue America was militarily and economically stronger in the 80s than it is now. I'm not saying we still can't, do some razzle dazzle when the occasion calls for it, but it's a whole different era. We are weaker economically because of the debt. We are weaker militarily because we're spread out all over the world. And different time, different place. So yeah, I mean that's my. I hope I answered your question, but that's more or less where it comes from. So there you go. Well, now this is true. This is true too. That is true too, my dear. Yeah, Rocky IV. That's the one I'm thinking of. Very true. I think this is a fair statement. Those of us who grew up in the Reagan era never feared for our country and never feared for nuclear war. We trusted Reagan. Yeah, true. I'll agree with that. I think that's a very fair statement. But anyway, like I was saying a minute ago, I know I'm going to get popped by YouTube for this one, but you know what? We got to end this live stream with some fun. So with that in mind, I hope you guys enjoy this one. Check. Yep. Even your bottle opener knows it's time. Exactly. All right. One more. You got to love somebody with the uninhibited ability to dance or the desire to do so. With that in mind, I hope you guys are ready to boogie in your chairs wherever you are out there. And like I said, I know YouTube's going to pop me for this one, but you know what? We got to find some ways to laugh in the midst of all this crazy. So with that in mind, yeah, I'll bet you could go with that bottle opener tonight. Anyhow, with that in mind, I hope you guys are ready to boogie out there in your chairs wherever you're sitting or standing. Maybe you're standing up, you're ready to get down with yourself. So that in mind, that dude's got moves. For a white boy, he's got moves. Anyway, all right, let's bring this train into the station. Thank you guys so much for being here. The lady and I were talking about this the other night, and she said, your live streams are your form of therapy, aren't they? I was like, yeah, they really are. Can I change the world with my live stream? Well, maybe one of these days, who knows? But shrooms, the reason why the bottle opener's dancing. Oh, goodness me. Can I change the world with my live stream? I don't know. Is this my way of just talking about the stuff that's in my head as I'm trying to process this? Absolutely. This is my form of therapy, and you guys are part of that. And if my lives if my live streams help you guys kind of get it out of your system as well, hey, then I serve a public function here. So, I'm glad to do it. So thank you guys for being a part of helping Jeff. Well, you're not wrong there. You're not wrong there, brother. We all need more therapy. Oh, goodness me. But thank you guys for being here tonight. Like I say, I will be traveling this weekend, so there is no front porch brunch this Saturday morning. And but I will probably do a stream. Yeah, I'm going to say probably Tuesday of next week, just to kind of get caught up on everything. Because there's gonna be stuff that happens over the weekend. I mean, the Limbaugh syndrome is I've got a bad case of it. I go away for a few days and something's amazing out in the world happens, or frightening in the world happens. But we'll be back to talk about it anyway. I love you guys very much. Thank you for being here. Thank you for being a part of the mutual therapy session. And for all you folks out there on X, or on Rumble, or on YouTube, wherever you are, if you're not subscribed to my channel, please go ahead and do so. And while you're at it, for tonight's live stream, please leave a thumbs up on YouTube. Please leave a thumbs up on Rumble. Please leave a thumbs up on X. Leave it at all three places and leave a comment. I'd love to hear what you think about the live stream, things we can do to improve it, etc. And share the link around with your friends, but subscribe to the channel. It would be greatly, greatly appreciated. And with that, you guys have a great rest of your Thursday night. Have a great weekend. I love you guys very much. And remember the words of that great American philosopher, Tom T. Hall, when he said, "It's faster horses, younger lovers, older whiskey, and more money." With that, have a great night.